biggest surprise for me in this race was at the start, that I jumped out to the front and I stayed there. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. Well, stay there is a relative term. Someone just shot by me and they stayed at the front. My biggest concern for this race was right before the start, where I saw that only 15 people were going to sign up. That is not a lot of people for me to hide behind, and having lots of wheels to draft is important to me, especially since the average age of this group seems to be around 40, and me of course being 65. And riding wheels is just what I'm doing, especially since the wonder of me shooting out to the front at the start and staying there for a bit has now passed. Yep, I'm all about conserving energy, especially since I figure that the rest of the pack is all of a sudden going to add 1 or 2 watts per kilogram and then just take off. Jumping forward to the start of lap 5, which begins the second half of the race, I have now passed my previous 3.5 lap threshold record of being able to stay with the front group. I've been able to surge a little longer, fortunately to the point before I redline, and be able to recover a little quicker thanks to the high-intensity interval training that I started recently. This anti-sandbagging crit course that I now usually do is run in the opposite direction of the city crit course that I used to do. The most challenging part of the course for me is the cobble section, which is now uphill. The roller section is not so bad now just because of the character of it. The bumps just don't seem so bad now in this direction. Speaking of the cobble section, let's jump to it. I try to position myself in the group as we approach it, so I'm riding wheels, have a little easier time up. Okay, so right now you see me ghost out. I'm trying to use up this stupid ghost power-up that I don't need. There's no way I'm going to jump away from these guys, so I'm hoping to get a better one come around. And I've been using power-ups pretty much every lap. Back to the cobble section. So what happens in the cobble section pretty much every lap in the second half of the race is I finish at the very back. And so now I'm doing a little chasing to get back on, which begins to lead into the title of this video. The longer the race goes on, the more often I see myself off the back by a few meters and me having to make that gap up. And how I make that gap up is dependent on a number of things, starting with what's the pack that I'm chasing doing in front of me? Are they still strung out going hard? Or are they starting to pack up because they slow down a bit? How early in the race is this? How am I feeling? How many times have I done this before? And where am I in the fine line between aerobic and anaerobic death equation? Going through this rolling section is a matter of timing for me. The power I apply at any particular instant is recognized moments later by Zwift. My aim is to apply extra power on the upside and then back off just a little bit for a little quick recovery on the downside. You will notice that unlike most of the first half of the race, where I was toward the front or settled in the pack, I am mostly at the back now. Let's jump ahead to 2.5 laps to go where I'm starting to enter the cobble section. I am not tucked in. This gets steep the further you go into the cobbles. I'm burning a lot of extra matches now just to be able to stay close to these guys as we top out over the end. Everyone else is pushing from the high 4s into the low 6s, and I'm barely crossing 4.0. Now that we topped, my watts per kilogram is still less than everyone else's. I'm so on the edge right now, but at least these guys aren't pulling away from me, at least not yet. If I can just hang on, if they can just slow up, maybe I can connect. So at this point, I shifted down and I decided to try something new. I'm going to take the emphasis off my muscles, like what I did climbing up on that brick section, and put it onto a higher cadence onto my aerobics, and then just spin as fast as I can. And that worked. While I was able to connect, I did connect at the start of the roller section. So I continued my efforts by doing the extra on the upside and just doing a little bit of extra recovery on the downside. I'm still with these guys, and I know that I'm heading into 2 laps to go. Again, new territory for me. I'm keeping a track on the people behind me, but I'm now the 13th person, and there's 15 here, and those other 2 are lapped a couple times at least. So I know they're not going to catch me, but it's decision point here, and I do have just enough, and I'm able to make another little surge and get tucked in, somewhat tucked in. Everyone is going faster now, which means whatever matches I have left are getting used up quicker. Since it was so much fun, let's jump ahead in the next lap to the start of the cobbled section. Again, I'm off the back and I'm chasing up this very hard section for me. And I see that some poor soul that's come up behind me that's going to pass me, I'm going to try and get on his wheel if he does pass me so I can get at least somewhat of an easier ride. But then there's that gap, and now I'm in that same position. And if you look at my picture on the lower left-hand corner, my mouth is open and I'm breathing like a racehorse. I am just half a lap away from being on the last lap with these guys. But to qualify to be on the last lap with these guys, I got to be with these guys. So I have now dropped to a higher cadence. My cadence is now getting toward 100, and I'm doing that same thing I did the lap before, and it looks like it's working for me. At least I thought it was. Now I still got to chase, but I can't do that high cadence stuff because I'm starting to overcook on my aerobic. So now I've shifted down, and now I'm starting to rely on my muscles. And now I'm doing that same thing, going up these rollers and kind of resting on the back end, and it seems to be working. Just around the corner after this section is the start of the last lap. And being with these guys at the start of the last lap is a big thing for me. So I'm trying to make that happen. And it looks like it's happening. So technically, I'm starting the last lap with these guys. Now, to be able to sprint with these guys. Now, sprinting is going to be a relative term for me because I've been on the edge, and do I have enough matches just to be able to finish with these guys? We're going to find out. And so that's what I am aiming for. For those of you new to my channel, I not only now have to factor in being an old guy into my training, and let me tell you, it's quite different than when I was a young cycling Greek. I have to worry about being subject to AFib. Oh look, there's yet another gap I have to fill. With my AFib situation, I have to stay away from sustained fatigue. So if I do something big, I have to make sure that I'm pretty much rested and ready to go the next time I get on the bike. Or at least I get on the bike at least at a moderate intensity. I can remember thinking right about now that I've pretty much used up all my muscles and that there's not a lot left. I'm tucked in a little bit. I'm on somebody's wheel, which I'm real thankful for, but the key is going to be going over that brick section. Now, I thought this guy was kind of dying out, so I'm just trying to get up to the pack ahead of me to get on one of their wheels, hopefully before I get to that brick section. And that's not working. So that guy's coming up again. So now I'm getting back on his wheel, and hopefully the sticky effect will get me over to the rest of them, which it is. I am with these guys and I'm close enough. So I'm pretty happy right now in a deadened kind of state, and even though I'm going pretty hard. So here's the steeper part of the brick section, and I still have people with me. So things are looking good. So it's just half a lap to go. And I think you can see by my picture, that's it. My legs gave out. I did not give up, but my legs gave out. So I take a quick look and I see that the next person behind me is like 9 minutes, in the rears. So I am, I try to give a nudge to try and surge up to these guys, but no, that's it. That's it. So now I'm just trying to keep the average of my wattage up for this race, because I started crossing over into the 270 watt average range. Now, as it turns out, I did 265 watt average. I did finish 13th out of 15, but only 19 seconds behind the leader. I was pretty happy with that result. Now, on ZwiftPower.com, I came in 9th. Of those 4 that didn't make it on there, 2 of them clearly should have been A's, and the only A rider that participated in the A race would have appreciated that, I'm sure. The other 2, at the very least, had not signed up for ZwiftPower.com. Even though this is an anti-sandbagging race, there are those that sneak in. Or it could be that these guys had just gotten stronger and now they're ready to move up to the A's. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it. Always remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.